Hello everyone and welcome again to the SQL course. So we spoke about the group by clause. Now it's time to speak about the having clause, which is a clause similar to where with a small difference that we are going to investigate here. So let me pick up the last query that we've done where we've calculated the minimum length of a movie. I'm going to put here having example, and instead of the minimum length I'm going to calculate average length as we've seen. Let me run this query again. Remember that we are doing a group by here, the rating. So let me also make this a bit more explicit. Instead of the one, it's a group by a rating. Now, if I want to build a where clause, for example, I only want to show the types of movies or the ratings that contain an average length over 120 minutes of film. We can try to do that with the where clause. So I'm going to do where average length is higher than 120. Let's see if this works or not. So as you can see, we have here an error because we have one problem, which is using the where clause after the group by clause is not enabled. Okay, the where clause must come before the group by clause. So let's test that. I'm going to put here where average length over 120. Now let's check. We have a new error. And the new error states that the average length is not a column of the table. Why is that? Because the summarized columns, or even columns that we call an alias, don't work with the where clause. So the where clause is not being able to read this average length because it's not in the original table. So as it's not in the original table, how can we go around this problem? Well, for that we have the having clause. So just think that the having clause is similar to where, but it's to use any column that is created by an aggregator function, for example, or by an alias for something that you calculate and you need to use after the calculation was done. As an example, let me put here, instead of the where clause, I'm going to write after the group by having average length over 120. Now let's run this one, and as you can see, I have a result. Because the average length is created during the query. It's not in the original table. Let's test this with a simple alias. For example, select rating as new rating from sequila.film. I'm just renaming the column. So I'm just going here, select, and we have just a new rating column. Okay. And now I'll want to select all the ratings equal to G, but I'll use the name where new rating is equal to G. Let's see if this works. It does not. Why? Because the new rating is not in the original table. If I change this to a having, let's see, I'll have a result. Okay? Because I'm using the alias. As I'm using the alias, which is what's on the output of my query, I can use the having here to filter the data. Okay, so just make sure that you understand this. Where is to filter rows based on the original table where you are filtering from. Having is to do things on the aliases, new columns, or aggregator functions or results from aggregations that you are creating in your query and that are only sorted in the output. It's as if we have here a process, the where we can use before processing our query, and the having we can use after processing our query, in this case the new columns or new names that we are having on our query and in our output table. This is a really important clause because mostly it's used in this question right here or in these types of examples where we have a group by and an aggregator function. So you use the group by, and then what we'll have is that we want to filter some specific rows based on the aggregator function that is already calculated. Okay, so we can do this in multiple steps, but here with the having is really cool. In this case, by reading this query, and let's read it together, we are selecting the rating and the average length of the movie for each type of rating, where we are grouping by the rating from the sequila film. And then what we are doing is just filtering the ratings that have an average length of over 120 minutes. So this is what we are doing here in this query. Having seems a bit cumbersome in the beginning, but as you get used to it, you'll see that this becomes almost second nature, using where or using having you'll understand clearly where you have to use one or the other. So I hope this was clear. Let's continue forward with the order by clause.